My name is Artemio Romero y Carver. I'm a queer Chicane activist. I work and I'm one of the co-founders of Yucca, Youth United for Climate Crisis Action, and I'm a high school senior at the New Mexico School for the Arts.
So can you tell us about Yucca? What the mission is, how long
Yeah.
it's been around, and how you do your work of fighting to attack the climate crisis?
Yeah, so Yucca stands for Youth United for Climate Crisis Action. It's also the name of a plant that's indigenous to New Mexico, the yucca plant. And the root of the yucca plant can be made into a kind of soap, a kind of shampoo that can be used to clean. And so we like to think about ourselves as engaging in some kind of process of cleansing, of healing, right, through a natural source. So what Yucca does is primarily works on campaigns on a state, government, and local level to push renewable, just climate action and policy with an emphasis on environmental racism.
When you go and speak to decision makers, right, whether
Yeah.
it's legislators, regulators, people in power, and you talk with them about your personal story, you talk with them about your future and the climate crisis and what it might mean for you, do they listen to your voice? Do they listen to you because of the power of your youthful perspective, or are they dismissive?
When I confront politicians, because it often is not a conversation, it's often a confrontation. Mm-hmm. Climate crisis is a reality, but it is sadly a highly contested reality with only the worst of faith. So often when I'm in conversation with politicians, both on a state and federal level, right, when I talk to those people, I find often that they've done two things. First of all, they're in deep denial of reality. And second, that they've taken that denial of reality and created an entire political agenda based on that denial. And often, I don't think it's a deeply evil or sinister denial. It's a denial that comes out of fear, right? It's an understanding of, yeah, the climate matters, my children's lives matter. I also need funding for my next campaign. So then they start to hold two truths at the same time, that the oil industry can fund my campaign, and I can also care about children, and I can also care about the planet. But that's not true. You can't represent the interests of oil companies at the same time that you represent the interests of children, of black and brown people, of the American nation, of the human species. Those things are mutually exclusive. The world is on the brink of collapse because of Western culture and because of colonial land practice, right? It's because of a profit incentive. And when we have these extractive industries, where are they centered? They're centered in sacrifice zones deemed by the Nixon administration to put, heavy pollutant facilities right next to black and brown communities, right? To offload that hurt into the most vulnerable people. So the oil industry, in the way that it puts fracking sites on indigenous land, right? In the way that the San Juan coal plant, which I think recently closed, but was located very near the reservations, potentially on reservation land, the way that all of that stuff is housed is with the premise that black and brown lives, that people of color, our lives, are worth less than white lives and are a worthwhile sacrifice to produce another gallon of oil or some more coal. And that's the origins of the climate crisis. That pollution starts because of racial violence. And then when the climate collapses, when we have massive pollution, when we have rising temperatures and rising waters, the effects are going to be felt and are being felt the most by already marginalized communities. Again, black and brown communities, right? When we had COVID and the pandemic rise across this nation, across the globe, the people immediately hurt the most and having some of the highest rates were indigenous people, in part because we know that COVID-19 is exacerbated if you've been living near a source of air pollution. And those are deaths that can be attributed to COVID-19, but can also be attributed to the oil industry, which is a murderous white supremacist industry. And so for me, climate work, environmental justice work, racial justice work, abolitionist work are all the same thing.